This is the 5th episode of the character series from the Pages podcast.
Previously on the Pages podcasts.
So here's the thing, no one is perfect. Flaws make characters relatable and interesting. And if you spin relatable stories that shows how their flaws or vulnerabilities affect their life and how they relate to others, that's a potential for a deeper, nuanced character. Things that are stereotypical. Oh, black people eat too much pepper, or Indians have too much spices. But why are you telling me this person has these things if it's not relevant to the story?
To add to what you said, it now becomes less about the spice and then more about the fact that this character is actually flawed. So
Yes, exactly. How was death added in BoJack Horseman, the character himself? Shame is a major component to it. There was a character that joined BoJack's life who he came to truly cherish, and it was very profound to see BoJack lie not to protect himself, but to protect someone else. She confided to him one time about being afraid. She says, BoJack, this voice in my head that tells me that I'm no good. It goes away, right? In the typical BoJack fashion. What you expect for him is to say, it doesn't go. But BoJack, he considers himself. He considers his words. He doesn't want to hurt that princess. Of course not. Are you stupid? Of course not.
that was heartbreaking, not gonna lie.
This was a very profound moment that foreshadowed BoJack's ability to actually change. The true test of depth in a character is the audience's ability to deeply understand the character's actions and inactions, motivations, and needs throughout the character's development and how it relates to the character's transformation.
In our last chapter, Rita and I left the shallow waters of character complexity to dive deep into the ocean of character depth. We explored the technicalities of what makes a character truly rounded and fought our way back to shore after a deep-sea analysis of BoJack Horseman's psyche. Today we're doing something a little bit different. Before we get into the heavy lifting of our analysis into BoJack's character arc, we are dedicating this episode to you, our audience. We're inviting you to play along with our character transformation game. It's a fun, run-of-the-mill trip down memory lane that hopefully reminds you of some of your sweetest victories. This episode is as much about your own personal growth as it is about the golden nuggets of fiction. We want you to feel seen, understood, and inspired to create. So, without further ado, welcome to the foundational phase of part 3 of our rounded character saga. I'm your host, Betty, and in a few seconds you'll hear the awesome, energetic voice of my co-host, Rita. Good morning, Pages fans. Welcome, Rita.
Thank you. Always a pleasure.
Welcome to the 5th episode of the Pages podcast. And yeah, it's been quite a journey. It's nice that we are here recording the 5th episode. And wow, we've done a lot of analysis. So are we ready for today's episode?
I don't know. I'm a bit nervous. Yeah. Let's go. Let's go already.
Right. This episode is addressing the third part of the rounded character design. We talked about what a rounded character is and the first 2 elements that make up the rounded character. So we will address the remaining 3 and we'll get to the point of everything. We're getting to the end of the series little by little. Now we'll talk about transformation as a fundamental human experience and as a critical tool in crafting rounded characters. To start, I'm going to ask you a few questions, Rita. Are you familiar with the term character arc?
Not exactly. Like I've just heard about it. Like the word has been thrown
Hmm.
around, but I don't really know exactly anything about it.
Well, character arc is all about transformation. The first time I heard about that word arc, I think I heard about it in reference to anime, to be honest.
Hmm.
I hear a lot of people talk about, oh, this next arc, this next arc, this next
Yeah,
arc.
that's why I hear it too.
Mm. And I always thought it meant one part of the saga has finished, a new saga is starting.
Yeah, a season has ended. A new season is coming up or something.
And usually, when there is a new season, there's introduction of new characters. They're like maybe changing environment, something is changing.
Mm-hmm.
In a way, character arc does have something to do with transformation. So it does make sense. The word arc in general is used to pinpoint when there is a transformation. So there is story arc, there is character
Mm-hmm.
arc, there is plot arc, there is different kind of arcs, by the way. And arcs is just generally referring to a transformation. But today we are focusing on character arc. Character arc is all about the transformation stages of a character in a story. Literally, any kind of transformation that follows a theme is an arc. The arc can be based on location, physical development, mental maturity, ambitions, worldview, intelligence. Honestly, it varies. Anything that brings changes to a character is referred to as a character arc. Rita, we are going to play an interesting game today. Do you mind trying an activity with me?
Yeah, yeah, let's do it. I'm ready.
So better get your pen now because this one, those of you that don't like mathematics.
Oh my god, like that's what's making me nervous because hey,
Those of you that don't like
prac-
math, it is time to start. You know, when your algebra teacher was teaching you basic math, and you're like, why do I need to find X? Today, you will find out why you need to find X. Get
bro,
ready.
X is I don't know in the new world. I don't want to find X.
We had to find X. It is important. Who knew that math would come in handy even in a storytelling podcast? Who knows?
Yeah, it's true. Math is a universal language.
I still hate it anyways.
Yeah, same. Oh, okay.
All right. So I want to invite the audience to also participate, try and participate in this. So you can get a book and try and write out your responses. The purpose of this exercise is to find out what kind of rounded character you would be right now in your life in a fiction story. So, if you were a main character in the fiction story and you were this rounded character, what kind of round character would you be? And at what level of rounded are you going to be on? That's exactly what we are trying to do. I try to create a sort of mathematical, logical analysis towards that. It's really simplified. I don't consider a lot of nuances. So you cannot use this to go and write a research paper. Please keep that in mind. It is really rudimentary at best. It's just very basic. It doesn't reflect reality of anything, but it's just to
Mm,
humor us and to get you guys to see what character arc is really all about.
mm.
So if you can, try take out a note and then make a list, an accurate list of events that we're going to be talking about that you remember, because you're going to need this for the final result. So, Rita, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
The first question, for as far back as you can remember, just think about your entire life. Now, based on location alone, no, how many
Mhm.
places have you relocated to for a period of time, either with your family or alone as an independent individual, that brought you a whole new set of people other than your family? So I'm talking about like you've moved to a place where you had to stay for a long period of time, let's say minimum 3 months. You moved to a place up to like 3 months, you were there for that period of time. So these are the number of places that we are counting. When you move to this place, you got to meet a whole new set of people. You had a whole new different experience and new environment. Let's just assume that the people around you are kind of the side characters in the story while you are the main character. Now, I want you, Rita, and the rest of the audience to take an inventory of the number of places that they have moved to from the day they were born. Now, we are not counting the place you were born that you can't even remember and somebody had to tell you that you were born there. I'm talking about places that you personally can remember moving to. This can be moving
Mhm.
with your family or moving into a boarding school or moving into a hostel, moving to a new apartment.
Mm,
So these are the kind of places we are counting, not just school, but even like work. Maybe you had to travel for a period of time for something and you were there for a long time. It was a long experience.
mhm.
So, how many of these places can you count from your memory right now?
Yeah, I can count like 5.
Five?
Mm, yeah,
In my own memory, mine is 12. I've moved a lot.
yeah, you have you nomad. Yeah. Okay.
Question two. How many growth sprout changes do you recall having? So let me explain this very well. You know, as we grow, there are key moments in our life that we realize that we've changed. Something has
Mm,
physically changed in our body. You can see that your body is physically morphing into something else. I want you to
Mm-hmm.
count how many of those moments that you can remember. And it has to be linked to something like a core memory. So you remember it because maybe something happened and that's why you remember, oh yeah, I'm growing, I'm changing. So how many of those kind of moments have you
Mm,
had?
okay. Maybe 4.
Four.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Now, be careful because question 3 and 4, they seem similar. It seems as if I'm asking about the same thing, but they're very different
Yeah.
things. Question 3 is asking about things that were completely out of your control. Like you literally had no choice. Maybe somebody even made a choice for
Mm,
you, or just life made
mm-hmm.
a choice for you. So
Oh,
you
okay.
practically didn't have a choice in this particular circumstance. While question 4 is asking about things that you clearly had a choice. Like you could have chosen one thing or the other, and you deliberately, knowingly
Mm,
chose that thing because maybe some certain expectations or whatnot, but that's what you chose, right? So, question 3 goes like this:
oh.
how many major life experiences have you ever had that were so significant it marked a very clear point in which the way you saw or view or thought of certain things changed in comparison to what you previously believed? So I'm talking about your life experiences. Maybe you've had something that was major that happened to you. You didn't have any control, but it sort of happened to you, and that changed how you saw things. I don't know, anything, just anything in life at all. It just
Yeah.
changed your perspective. It could be like a spiritual awakening, an educational
Mhm.
opportunity, an intellectual discovery, a career shift, or relationship
Mm.
dynamics. So, how many of these things can you count?
I can count 2.
Two, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the fourth question is, how many major life decisions have you had to take? I'm talking about life changing decisions that you had to take that shifted the trajectory of your life, like the direction of your life that you were expecting. So you've got a goal, you've got things that you want to do, and you took this major decision knowing that it's going to determine the next 5 to 10 years of your life, right? And you make this
Mhm.
decision knowingly, and that decision then shifted your life trajectory, took you in a different direction that you were actually expecting. So, this is the fourth question. And you can see how it's different. The first one's about you have no
Yeah.
control. This one, you had
Yeah.
control. So, tell me.
I think about 3.
Three?
Yeah. Yeah, 3 events. I'll say that, yes.
Okay, so in Rita's case, we have a total of, let me say, 9, 10, 11, 12.
Yeah.
Total of 12 different transitions that you've had based on location, growth, things that were in your control, and things that were out of control. These are like 12 different transitions. Now, the next question is very critical, and you need to remember this very well. How many of
Okay.
these 4 transitions can you remember happening at the same time or the same period of your life? So you've got maybe a change of growth happened at the same time that you were having a location change, or maybe you were making a major life decision. How many of these events happened at the same time? Then, if 2 of these events happen at the same time, you've had a mini life arc. If 3 or 4 happen at the same time, you've had a major life arc. So this is what you have to count.
Oh, okay.
You have to count the mini arc different from the major arc because they have different points. So you count how many mini
Yeah.
arcs have you had? Like 2 of these events have happened at the same time. How many of that has happened? Then how many of 3 or 4 of these have happened? So you get number of mini arcs, number of major arcs. That's what you have to do now.
Okay. It's going to take a lot of thinking. Yeah.
Hmm.
Oh, mini arcs can be like changing location, right?
Yeah. Changing location
Um,
and maybe something else also happened at the same time. So it has to be 2 events
at the
happening at the same
same
time
time.
that you already listed amongst the 12 things you remembered.
Okay. So that means I have like 3 mini arcs and then 2 major arcs.
Oh, 3 mini arcs.
3 mini arcs and 2 major arcs. So I think everything just kind
Mm,
of like happened together. A lot of things happened in relation together. Yeah.
right.
So major arcs are on its own, right?
Yeah, but the key thing to remember when you're counting major arcs and minor arcs is the period they're happening. So even
Mm,
if two events happen at the same time, it might have happened maybe when you were 12 and then when you were
mm-hmm.
13. But if you were having a mini arc happening and then at the same time something major then happened, then it's no longer a mini arc, it's now a major arc. Do you
Mm,
get? If it's happening
yeah.
around the same period of time, maybe in the same year or in the same era, then it's a major arc. You count it
Yeah.
as a major arc. But if maybe you had this transformation happen like this year, and maybe 3, 4 years later,
Mm-hmm.
or just in a completely
Something
different
else
time,
happened.
something else happened and it was not related or connected to one another, then you have two different mini arcs. This is like the key thing to sort of separate it in case you're having confusion about how to separate it.
Okay, okay. Yeah, major arc 2, my mini arc like 4. The other are just that I can remember, Sha.
Mm.
Yes.
All right. So get this. Your mini arcs get 1 point each. So you've got a total of 4 points from just your mini arcs alone. Then your
Yeah.
major arcs get 2 points each. So you get another total of
Mm,
4 points from your major arcs,
okay.
meaning that you have a total of 8 points in general. So let's just go with the figure you've given us. Okay.
Time.
Next, you have to add all the single transitional changes together that you previously counted from each of the
Yeah.
questions 1 to 4.
So
Let's
that's it
call that
12.
result T. So the single translations that you've had is T, and that's 12, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Then we will now count all the points that you had from combination of your minor and major arc, which is 8, right? Because you had
Yeah.
4 minor arcs and then 2 major arcs, right? And major arcs
Mm,
gets 2 points. So that's why you have 8 points in general.
mm,
Your total points that you got from all your minor and major arcs, we'll call that A. So we'll say A divided by T. Remember that T is your
yeah.
individual transition. In your case, that will be 8 divided by 12. What's that? Oh, that's 0.6. 0.6.
0.6.
We will now multiply that result by 10.
That's 6.
So that gives
6.6.
you a result of 6.7. So we can just approximate it to 7. So your result is 7.
Okay, that's high, yo.
It is high.
It's kind of nonsense.
Again, I told you, like the mathematics is not refined. It's not a refined formula. I would probably need to get a mathematician to help me or a behavioral analyst to help me refine this, but it's so
Yeah.
rudimentary. However, let's just roll with. Let's assume that it's like this Albert Einstein formula that is so great, and just keep
That is
moving with
really
it.
cool. So you coming up with your own equations. I love that.
Let's assume that it's refined and it's really good. Let's just assume. So here's the results, guys. If you score less than 5 or anything that approximates to 4 and below, you are a discrete dynamic character. By discrete dynamic character, I'm talking of like Luffy or Zoro from
Mm,
One Piece. I'm talking about like
mm,
Diana Prince from Wonder Woman, Katniss
mm,
Evergreen from Hunger Games, or like Lorelai
mm,
Gilmore for Gilmore Girls. So basically, being a discrete dynamic character, you're like a character that goes through a lot of changes, but you don't really change yourself. So you basically are kind of the same person in the end, but considering how much individual changes that you've not had a lot of major character arcs. So your points are really low, meaning that you maintain who you are throughout your entire life story, or at least so far as your story has developed. Then, if you scored exactly 5 or approximately 5, you're a quintessential dynamic character. So you're someone like Arya Stark from Game of Thrones or Harry from Harry Potter. We would consider this the average level of transformation and growth expected in characters, or just like in life in general. I guess in this case, the number of single transformations that you have had matches or balances with the number of transformations that you have also had. So, meaning that you're a character that have had some changes, but just not dramatically. And now, if you are scoring above 5 like Rita, by the way, please do not take this offensively, seriously speaking. It's just
mm-hmm.
Rita probably has had a very crazy life, even though the single transitions that she can remember are not that much. But the fact that each of these transitions were so significant in her life and they've brought a form of change in her life,
Mm-hmm.
that is what makes her as a character, in this case, an unequivocal dynamic character. which means you're a character that from who you were when you were small to who you are right now, you've changed. Now, you might not see yourself as somebody that have changed a lot, but the formula is
Yeah.
telling us differently that you've changed. You've had a more or less dramatic change in your life because of so many experiences that you've had. Not just experiences just floating, but experiences that have actually impacted you. Keep in mind, guys, change is not just physical, it's also mental. Like the way you see
Mm-hmm.
things, the way you view the world, that's also part of the changes we're talking about. Your mentality, it's also your personality, it's also your way of relating to the world and relating to yourself.
Yeah. Guy, I mean, that checks out, you guys, because honestly,
Does it?
yeah, it does. You guys, this equation is legit. Don't
Ex-
call in mathematician. Let's write the paper now. Let's find out if your character arc is huge or not. Because, like, I'm not the same person that I was last year, and the person that I was last year is not the same person that they was like a year before, 2 years before.
Mm.
2 years ago, I wouldn't have agreed to do this podcast with you because I was too shy to maybe talk when there's a crowd, like having extreme anxiety for no reason and not able to manage my anxiety and stuff like that. So yeah, checks out, guys. Let's get that grant.
Are you trying to console me because my formula is so rudimentary?
No,
It's not backed by science.
even though it's only one person that has done the experiment, right? And a couple of people that did the experiment with us, it still checks out because yeah, I have changed a lot since the last time like we met face to face. Like
Ooh.
yeah, like a completely different person, and we like this person more than the person that we were before. Yeah, so it checks out. Yeah, I love that.
Right. So we've got three types now. Remember, guys, if you score less than 5, you're a discrete dynamic character. And please, none of these
At
results are
all.
bad. It's just
Yeah,
referring to the kind of transformation that you have had. And if you were a story, the kind of character you will be in a story. Having a strong core value and not changing much, like Luffy or Zoro or Wonder
yeah,
Woman.
it's amazing actually.
Exactly. You have
Yeah,
a core backing. If you're a quintessential dynamic character, you're the regular person who goes through changes and is affected by it, like Harry Potter.
yeah, these are very fantastic characters.
The third one is an unequivocal dynamic character, which is what Rita is. So you're like Daenerys Targaryen from Game of Thrones.
Mm-hmm.
She had a very dramatic change. Anywho, I also did mine. I scored 3.8. So let's say like 4. And guys, my total transformation, it was up to 22.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you're like moving around a lot.
The score might change eventually if I do it again in the future. Because if you think about it, our lives, it's an ever transforming story. So
Mm-hmm.
whether you're a dynamic character, or you're quintessential, or you're unequivocal, we are all going through some sort of transformation.
It's good that the things that you're not changing are the like positive attributes. We should always try to do better in those positive attributes and change the negative attributes to be better people for the community, right?
Right. And for ourselves and for people around. Yeah. Right.
Exactly. For ourselves and for people around us. So as long as we're thriving on that part, then yeah,
Right.
that's really cool. As far as you know that I've gone through a lot of change, you guys. You guys don't know what you're talking about. And that's the most important thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
You see, that's why your calculations checks out. So
I hope so. I hope that when the
yeah.
audience will participate in this, I hope they will not wrestle with the results too much.
No. And if they do, send you
Yeah.
an email. Let's have a discussion. Let's hop on a call. You guys make things work.
I can't defend
So
the
I cannot.
formula though. I can't defend the formula, guys. So please, I will probably get a behavioral analyst to refine it, but I can't defend
Yeah,
it.
to
So
look at it. Yes. Okay.
it's supposed to be for fiction, not for reality. So
Yeah, no for reality. Yeah, we're calculating Luffy's life here, guys.
the point of this exercise is not to get you to start judging yourself. This is the most important lesson from this exercise. Regardless of what you score on the scale, it is more
Mm,
important to see this quote that no one in real life is a static character.
mm.
We all change, and that's what character transformation is all about. Transformation is a key ingredient in creating a rounded character. It is what really makes every other element of complexity and depth significant. Why do you make your character have this complexity and why do you give them depth? And how do you judge the significance of these things that you give to them? It's by the transformation that they go through. It is all about the ability to change, and it is the one major thing we can use to judge a character's impact on a story.
Yeah. And then these transformations are called arcs, right?
Yeah, these
Okay.
transformations are called arcs. By the way, when you think about it, it's also very true in reality. The impact of our story in life is also connected to how we change, the kind of changes that we have. So, there is a Greek philosopher who once said, change is the only thing that is constant about life. And I think we can all agree to that. Everything changes, but
Mhm.
change is the only thing that you should always expect in life.
Yeah.
I must add that God is the only unchanging thing about life. If you're not a Christian, it's okay. We're not arguing. I'm just telling you as a Christian, God is
Mhm.
the only unchanging thing about life. When we get to the end of our road in life, we are faced with brutal questions like how much of everything really matter? How much of it really mattered? And by it, I'm talking about our lives, this life that we're living right now. Some questions become the scale of measurement to the kind of eulogy we get when you die, when people start talking about you. People start asking stuff like, okay, how much did we as individuals make a difference? So somebody dies, we won't talk about this person, but how much did they make a difference in the life of people around them? How much were we able to change and improve and make an impact on ourselves and those around us? What kind of memory did we leave behind? Would we be remembered by those with whom our paths had crossed with? Did we leave behind a rainbow of positive experiences with the occasional rainstorm, or did we summon with us a hurricane of bad experiences that threatened and maybe destroyed those that are along this path that we had encountered? And more importantly, will it matter at the end of the day? Maybe one day when we are gone, it wouldn't matter if all of these things happened or not. But for those of us that left behind, that our loved ones or anybody we know, what someone did to us or did for us, even after the person is long dead and gone, always has the potential to have a real impact in our lives. So, yes, it does matter. This is the issue of character complexity and depth that we talked about in the previous episode, the issue of impact and of consequences. Remember when I talked about the consequences of action as a way that the creators of BoJack Horseman showed complexity in BoJack's story? I mentioned that there was a character that BoJack had also almost strangled on stage to death
Yeah.
while he was under the influence of some drugs. I remember I said in that episode that even though he came to terms with what he did, but the consequences of the psychological trauma he left on that character became like a heavy mark that distorted our sense of safety. She changed, and we got to see
Yeah.
that aftermath. All this was happening behind the scene in a world where Bojack was actively trying to do better and right his wrongs. This is the element of consequences, and consequences is connected to character transformation. While I can't provide a definite response from experience about whether it matters or not in the grand scheme of things, because any response I would give will completely be based on my faith as a Christian. But regardless of what our beliefs are, what we subscribe to ultimately impacts what we choose to do and how we will be defined. Here's the major takeaway: we are judged by our actions. We are always judged by our actions. This is also true for characters. We judge characters based on what they do, which is why transformation journey matters a lot. It's not how a person starts a race that matters, it's usually how they finish. People mold, they form, they bend, then they break, and sometimes they shatter, then they mend, they reform, and then they transform. This is a whole metamorphosis. Humans, our life is like a metamorphosis. This process of becoming human and living and being, it's like an evolving process of transformation. And that is as real as life itself. Physiologically speaking, there are six major transformation changes in human life cycle. We've got the fetus, the infant, the child, the adolescent, the adult, and the elderly, with birth and death marking the beginning and the ending sides of the spectrum, respectively. However, there are more nuances involved, like our environment and personal perception and personality and talent and influences. There is no one fits all fixed timeline for every human experience. We may consider the generally acceptable social culture phase of life that keeps changing from generation to generation. Transformation, as heavy as it is in reality, it can also be that impactful in fiction. It is the singular key element that you can use to judge the impact of a character in a story. For this reason, every rounded character must, like I emphasize, must have their own transformational arc. So, how do we define character transformation in storytelling? Here's the actual definition. Character transformation, also known as character arc, is defined as a significant internal change or evolution a character undergoes due to conflicts, events, or revelations in a story, making them more engaging and relatable. It is the path that a character takes from their initial state to a new one, often a journey of emotional, moral, or psychological change in response to the story's events. So, with this definition, you guys can understand why we were doing that task in the beginning, because that is what character transformation is all about. It's all about evolution, your evolutionary path as an individual, as a person. And that is real. That's something that happens in real life. If you want to craft a character that feels real, you've got to give them that character transformation. They have to have their character arc.
Yeah, they have to go through a lot.
Not necessarily. Yeah, conflict is necessary for change, right? But
Mhm.
you can even have smaller kind of conflicts happening, and that can still
Mm,
produce transformation reasonably in a character.
okay. Yeah, makes sense.
Let's say somebody who he's so scared to approach this person he thinks is the love of his life, or maybe she's a friend and he's afraid, he doesn't want to ruin their friendship, and he keeps holding
Mhm.
on to her because he thinks maybe whatever happens they're going to still end up together. Then one day girl decides she's leaving town, she's not coming back, like town is too small for her, and she leaves. Or let's say one day another guy comes in and then she gets engaged and then she's getting married right before this guy's eyes. While that's not like the biggest conflict ever,
Mhm.
it's not like groundbreaking, but it's still enough for him to realize he fucked up, right?
I mean, it's not groundbreaking when you say it like that, but it is in a lot of K dramas. Like it's a whole, um, it's a whole amateur wedding wearing black, and then she's like dancing in slow motion, and then he's crying, and there's one tear rolling down his face, and the crowd goes wild. They're like, "Go and get your woman, go on!" And then he's like running to the wedding hall to go and stop the engagement or stop the wedding.
Meh.
Or I, sorry, I digress. Carry on.
By the way, those kind of things actually happen in real life. Have you ever heard of somebody who interrupted somebody's wedding
Wedding, no.
just because they think the person shouldn't marry that person? Have you ever heard of
No,
it?
I have never.
Yeah, I keep thinking like, where did these people get these stories from? Okay, I know it's fiction, but it has to be inspired by something, right?
Yeah.
Maybe this probably happened one time, or maybe somebody dreamt about doing it. It's just kind of weird.
I feel like that's why fiction exists, right? Fiction exists for us to explore parts of ourselves that we probably would not even do in real life. Like experiences that would never happen in real life. Fiction is a very safe space to examine all those things.
Okay, yeah, these fiction stories sometimes be doing too much, like going overboard. But like,
We love that.
I've been using the wedding situation as a generally smaller case of a man who doesn't make a decision, and then even that kind of relatively small event is enough for him to sort of change, whether positively or negatively.
Yeah.
So here's why character arc matters, guys. First of all, it creates audience engagement. By having a character arc, you create a compelling character that keeps the audience interested and invested in the story. If you're giving me a character that doesn't have a lot of transformation, I can only watch that thing flippantly. Like, "Oh, okay, maybe just keeping my background noise and it'll be going." I don't feel like I have a stick. Another one is emotional connection. Witnessing a character's transformation fosters an emotional connection with the audience, making the story more relatable. Apart from audience engagement, when you have that transformation arc, it gives your audience something to feel like, oh, I'm seeing this character change and how they're changing. And it makes you feel like you want to follow this character. You kind of want to root for this character, right? So Character arc is really essential to creating that connection. Then finally, narrative depth. Transformation adds complexity and depth to a character, and it makes them feel more real, and it makes their story more compelling.
Hi, Pages! Jumping in quickly to remind you that this conversation doesn't have to end here. We offer extended versions of every episode exclusive to our subscribers at www.pagespodcasthq.com. For just $2, basically the price of quick snack, you can get unlimited access to all of our deep dives. If you're not ready to subscribe but you still want to help us grow, click the link in our description to like, share, or leave a donation. Every bit helps us keep the lights on. Now, let's get back to the show.
There are different types of character transformation in fiction stories, but I've grouped them into three main categories. They are the quality transformation, two, the phase transformation, and three, the consequential transformation. Keep in mind, these three different kinds of transformation that I'm talking about, they have nothing to do with the three results that we had in the beginning of the episode when we did that activity. This is just categorizing these individual transformations. What kind of transformations can we have? So let's start with quality transformation. Quality transformation is divided into two types. You've got the internal and the external quality transformation. Internal or inner type of transformation relates to changes on characters' beliefs, values, or personality. These are changes that are more intrinsic in values, like intrinsic qualities of a character. To give you an example, if a character's personality changed, that is an internal kind of transformation. And if a character maybe changed how they think about things, that's like an internal
Mm.
transformation. Any transformation that happens internally is an internal transformation. And that's one
Mm.
type of quality transformation. Rita, can you tell me any character you can think of that had an internal transformation in their story?
Yeah, so a lot comes to mind. Well, I think this show, long story short, they have a couple of characters. The one on Netflix, right?
You mean Bob Waxberg's
Yeah,
new
new show. Yes,
show?
they had characters that had some form of internal transformation. It ended up translating though, but I can what I can remember recently,
Mm.
those characters. Yeah.
Okay. And next, with the external quality transformation. These two, internal and external, are still under the quality transformation. Under the external quality transformation, this is easier to quantify this one. We're talking about measurable external transformations. We're talking about like physical transformations. Basically, any physical transformation that is visible or quantifiable, like physical appearance, is a type of external transformation. For example, maybe there is a boy and then there is a time skip, and then the boy goes from being this short squirt to being this 6 feet. Another example is a situational change. It's not only talking about physical, external transformation, but also situational change, like a poor man to a rich man, or changing in levels. You start from a basic worker and then you are promoted to a managerial person. These are external changes they were talking about. These are changes that changes their status in life or how they are seen or perceived or whatnot. So, does any character like that come to your mind? Any character that you know has a physical transformation in your story?
Ooh, a lot actually. Just off of my head, all main character, all K drama male leads basically. Oh yeah, female leads. So there's always maybe in high school she was a bit. She wore glasses. Oh my god, this princess, what's this popular girl now that wears red lipstick? Isha Princess something. They took her to a school and then they transformed her. She looked dorky. They not give her a makeover and then she became like pretty and the object of attention or something like. Huh, why can't I remember this babe's name? I don't know why Emma Stone is coming to mind. I don't know why. But a lot of movies are in that way, where you have a character that she's probably introverted, glasses, pimple, and then they do some kind of
Transformation.
bro Cinderella. Yeah, and then
Cinderella.
yeah, and then she becomes like this princess or something like that. Yeah,
Yeah, Cinderella definitely had an external transformation. I think that's literally the only transformation she had in the entire
that she
story
had.
because
Yes, I just realized.
Nothing else about her changed. She just went from being poor. I mean, she first went from being a princess. I think she was born to a rich family, and then later she's poor
Mm.
and broke and blah blah blah. And later she becomes a lucky Lancer prince, and then her life just
Yeah, that
changes.
makes her rich again. We don't even know whether she had any internal.
No, there was no internal change. It was like external change 101.
Okay, yeah. External change example. Perfect.
Now, the next category of transformation is the phase transformation. So the first one we talked about was quality transformation, and we talked about internal and external. Now the next category is the phase transformation, and there are two types also here. There is the flat arc transformation and the dramatic arc transformation. The flat arc transformation, this is where a character doesn't necessarily change that much at the end of the story, but they act as a pivotal catalyst for change in other characters on the world around them. They themselves, they're not changing, but their actions and their very existence or what they're doing is causing change in other people or in the story or events around them. A classic example I can think of is like Luffy. Like most heroes are like that. They have like flat arc transformations, so they don't really change, but they change people. They
Yeah.
change events, right?
Yes.
So we've got
Yes.
like Luffy, we've got Naruto, we've got Clark Kent, we've got Aang from
Mhm.
Avatar: The Last Airbender. Many of these
Mhm.
examples are characters that don't really change at their core at the end of their stories, but they do influence a lot of people around them to change, or they change the world itself around them.
Yes.
So, do you want to add any other characters to this list?
Mm. Actually, every single that's like
Most anime.
most anime ever. And then honestly, I am there for it. I love when a character affects its environment, and
Mm.
because of that character, a lot of people around that character kind of change. And then it's even better if the character themselves evolves, like they change themselves too. I love that. One person I can think of is extremely dramatic, right? It's this manga that I'm reading called Dead Demons. And then the main character, just by entering into a time machine and changing her timeline, moving from one timeline to another, she doomed humanity, right? And
Right.
then humanity ended up dying because an alien ship landed on Earth and decided they are going to destroy the human race. So
Mm.
you guys check it out. The nice manga. And what I have said now is not a spoiler. When you read it to shock you.
Okay.
That's a character that comes to mind right now.
Right. So she had like a flat arc transformation. And
Yes.
then, yeah, the next type is the active transformation type. So you can have either a flat arc or a dramatic arc transformation. And the dramatic arc transformation is called the active transformation type. This is where the character himself is not impacting other people, but he himself is undergoing so many levels of change, usually on a high level. And at the end, they're almost like an entirely different person. Now, for this example I'm about to give you, it's not the best example because in the end, he doesn't seem to fit the example of a rounded character per se. But his character arc was actually very dramatic. So I'm just mentioning him because of just how dramatic his character changed. And that's like Griffin from Berserk.
Mm.
Mm. He had a very dramatic, God, yeah,
Trauma. Trauma.
trauma.
Trauma.
By the way, if you're younger than 18 and you're listening to this podcast, be very sensitive about the materials that we're sharing with you and take note. Some of the content or some of the things we share sometimes may be R rated and it's not
Yeah.
recommended for you to watch. So, anyways, I think maybe a better example in this case would be Erin from Attack on Titan.
Yes.
Rita, you
Yes.
watch Attack on Titan, the whole thing, right?
Yeah, I haven't read the manga. Oh,
Mm.
oh my god.
Erin is probably a far more rounded character than that character Griffin. We get his backstories, even the change he goes. There's a whole saga towards it, like how he
Mhm.
landed to that conclusion in the end. My point is, he was always this hateful, bratty teen, but then he just transforms the hatred into something else. Just like he's no longer
Wait though, is it Aaron that we're talking about right now?
Aaron. Yeah, Aaron.
Bro, Aaron was a cutesy boy until his parents like were eaten by titans or something.
Yeah, but even when he joined the army, who he was to the final event, who he became in the
Oh, he
end,
became in
like
the end. Okay, okay. The difference is a lot.
It was
Yeah.
quite dramatic.
Yeah, I also think it's because we got an opportunity to know Aaron, right? We know him kind of
Yeah.
a lot. And then Griffin was very shallow. That was a pretty boy that went through a lot. So, I
Mm.
mean, that's based on what I know in the Griffin lore. Like the whole Berserk world, they have their own stories and lore and whatever based on limited knowledge. So, yeah, just recap, right? We have talked about two categories of transformation. So you have like quality and then phase. Quality,
Right.
you have internal, external, and then phase, you have flat and dramatic.
Yes.
Examples can come to our mind just based on the name of the type. Okay.
Right.
And all of these things inform the act itself.
Yes.
Okay.
The third category of transformation is the consequential transformation. And this was actually quite black and white, right? These are transformations where at the end of the story, the character either becomes a better character, that is, they have a positive transformation, or they become worse, which means they have a negative transformation or a degenerative arc. When I was doing my research, I only found these two, positive or negative, but I'm adding this third one. So I can say someone like Pain or Gara in Naruto had a positive
Mm,
consequential transformation because they
mhm,
were one way and then they became better.
mhm,
On the contrary, someone like Yagami Light from Death Note, he definitely had a negative and a dramatic transformation.
mhm. Yeah.
Got a little taste of power and he just got drunk on it. So he definitely had a bad ending.
Yeah.
He just kept getting worse as the story progressed.
Oh, yeah, it's true. And I think L is a really good example of someone that has an internal transformation because his interaction with light really, I won't say dramatically changed him, but he had to change his mindset to deal with
Right.
the situation.
Yeah, like to catch him.
Yeah, to catch him. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. See
Oh
how examples are popping up as we go.
God, I really love Death Note. Death Note is one of my all-time favorite anime amongst Full Metal Alchemist, by the way.
Mm,
And yeah, I love those two anime. Another type of consequential transformation that I'm adding, this is my own personal addition, and I will call it the neutral transformation. The character doesn't necessarily become better or worse, but throughout the story, they've had so many transformational mini arcs that it seems like everything that they've experienced just kind of like balances out. So they've had so many transformational mini arcs that it seems like everything balances out at the end. Kind of like Itachi, I would say, from
mm,
Naruto. We can't tell you that, okay, he started out good, then ended up bad. That's
mm,
not his story. He went from being this genius little kid who was the star of his home and then became an outcast. And later it's revealed that he's still kind of working under the shadows for Konoha. And then later he still
mhm,
comes back to rescue his little brother. And even after death, he's still kind of like good. But
mhm,
he's not necessarily a good guy because he does some really horrible stuff like killing his entire clan because he's so committed to the village. In his case, it's not like he went from good to bad. That's not the story. It's like his
yeah,
story, it's up and down. Sometimes there are
yeah,
moments where he's like this good person, and then there are times where he's bad again, and then he's good again, and then he's bad again. And then in different moments, he's a villain, and in different moments, he's like a hero. So I feel like the culmination of these different events make him a neutral person at the ending of the day. So this is what I'm talking about.
morally gray characters. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah, I mean, not just being morally gray, it's just like at the ending of the day, I'm looking at the final results. The final result
Mm,
of who he becomes is not a character that, when you compare it to who he was at the beginning of the story, it's not like, okay, he's now good or he's not worse. You can't say that definitely.
oh,
Do you
there's no
get?
dramatic change. Neither is like little or no change at all. It's just in the middle.
You can't say that Itachi ended up as a good person or as a bad person. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could be moral grayness, but it's not just about moral grayness. It's also about being, for example, let's use like a power skill, for example, like a character who, when they first introduce this person, he's all powerful, he's strong, right? And then
Mm,
maybe later other people surpass him and then he's now considered weak. And then he powers up
mhm,
again and then he's considered weak again. And then he just keep meeting characters that keep challenging him. And sometimes he fails and sometimes he wins. Then you get to the ending of the story and you can't necessarily say that, okay, at the ending of this story he's now this all-powerful character that has transformed. He has his moments, he's weak, he's up, he's down. Or maybe he's a hero and then he's a coward. And at the end of the day, you can't necessarily say, okay, this guy is a hero or he's a coward.
Oh, okay. Just there.
Yeah, he's had a mixture of both positive and negative transformations that in the end, it kind of just balances out.
Okay. 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 Yeah, I see that. I see that.
Can you think of any character that would fit this kind of description?
Now that you've explained, I was thinking at first characters from Fruits Basket. Like while I was watching it, I couldn't tell is this person a good person or is this person a bad
A
person.
bad
I couldn't
person,
really.
right?
Yes, maybe that's another reason why it did so well, and maybe that's another reason why maybe um I wasn't able to just sit down properly and watch it. So that's what I was thinking. When you explained it now, I also remembered Korra.
Oh,
The
yes, yes.
reminded me a lot of Korra Avatar.
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
She had a positive ending, honestly speaking. But considering,
the path to that point.
yes, considering the path to that point, she is not like she's so terribly better off as when she began,
Mm.
but it's like a up and down. Unlike Eng, for example, Eng definitely
Yes,
had a positive.
save it.
Yeah, because at the ending of the day, he becomes this hero, and we all know he's a hero. It's like black and white painted for us that he's a hero in the ending of the
Yes,
day.
yes.
Meanwhile, Korra's case, some people supported what she did in the end. Some people hated the fact that she left the spirit world open. So
Mm.
she couldn't please anybody, basically
Yeah,
speaking. So yeah. All right. So you guys understand the three different categories of transformations, right? We've got the quality, we've got phase, and we've got the
phase.
consequential.
Yeah,
Exactly. Another quality, we have internal and external. Other phase, we've got flat and dramatic. And
dramatic.
under consequential, we have positive, negative, and my own addition, neutral. So finally, let's consider what drives character transformation in fiction. What drives character transformation in fiction? We have conflict. As Rita said, you have to give them basketballs so that they can
Yeah,
change.
you just made they go through shit. Make them shake it. It's your character. That's why the parents are always dying.
Stop it, stop it. Not the parent death, please. I was discussing this thing with a friend one time,
Ah,
and I was like, I realized that there is like a trope. It's like a
yes.
trend, especially shonen anime. Why is it that there is no shonen anime where the mothers are alive and the fathers are always absent, more or
Yeah,
less?
exactly.
The mothers always died, or father is always gone to get milk and never returns. So so we were talking about what drives character transformation, and we just talked about conflict. It's essential, right? Another thing that drives transformation in characters is personal revelation. So characters often have moments of deep insight or realization that trigger their change. Say, for example, a lion that doesn't know he's a lion and keeps walking like a sheep. Then one day he looks at his image and sees all the other sheep and he says, "Oh, I'm different." And maybe one day he
Mm.
sees another lion like him killing a sheep and he's like, that is how I am.
Yeah.
It's just an example. Another thing that drives character transformation, confronting the past. There are always many stories about characters who lose their memory and they start living their life as one kind
Yeah.
of person. Then maybe one day
Mhm.
they are forced to confront the past. They have to face their past mistake, traumas, or anything that's like an ingrained belief in their mind. Just all of that can be a very powerful catalyst for transformation. That is another way
Yeah.
to drive character transformation.
I think this kind of transformation is used mostly in horror movies. I've noticed that they're always
Really?
going back. Yeah, they're always going back to maybe a town or a city or like a space where they have to confront something that they ran away from. Or
Mm,
yeah, confronting the past.
right.
Mm.
Another way to drive transformation is by introducing pivotal moments, which is like the most classic way. If you want to cause your character to change, you need to bring something really like dun dun. You guys get what I mean? Think, for example, like just one day waking up and realizing you had powers. Ooh. Like you can move things in your mind. You're like
They've changed though. Transformation, no. No
it's like
Spider
I have powers. It just changes you somehow.
Spider Man.
Or say, for example, you went outside and you just discovered a bag of 1 million euros, and you're like, what you do in that moment would change your life, you know? You can decide to take that money and go and change your whole life story, or go and turn it over to the police and start facing questions.
Yeah, exactly. Please turn it over to the police, because so that not the one you will carry the money and before you know it, they will tell you you just received $10 million. Somebody's going to come to your house to kill you to collect $10 million. Find the person and keep your money. Next thing you know, you're in a game. Squid game. You picked up money and then you're in Squid game. Don't pick up
Okay,
any
okay,
money
okay.
and keep it though.
The Rita
I'm
has been
just saying.
traumatized.
How
Fiction has killed her.
how
Like some people be like,
traumatized.
hell no, I'm taking that money. Hell no. I can never be poor again. I'm taking it to go and change my life.
There's a whole anime about that thing where they picked up money. You know what's another episode? We should have a poll on that. Would Nigerians pick the money or not? I don't think Nigerians pick the money.
Let's not make it Nigerian thing. Let's just say, will you pick your money? Because like
Oh, okay. Will you pick the money?
it's not about being Nigerian though. It's a human thing. If you're confronted
Hmm.
with this, what would you do? What would you really do? Be honest with
I'm a
yourself.
friend. I'll take a bit out of it and send the remaining to the police, man. But I won't take the whole money. I
So
won't take the
Rita
whole
said she would take a
money.
little one.
I'll take
I
a
don't know
little
what
and
I
then
would
give the
do.
rest to the police. Actually,
Honestly speaking, I don't know.
when you get to that bridge, call me first, too.
Because part of me is also thinking about my faith as a Christian, like everything.
Yeah, because you might be stealing. You're converting someone else's property. You get.
Yeah, what's the right thing to do? Someone else can be like, oh, well, maybe this is God's blessing to me.
Yeah, exactly. After all, manna fell from heaven at some point, bro. Let's
But
go.
God specifically made it clear that it was for them. Did God make it specifically clear to you that that money was for you?
Maybe I don't know. What if your kokoro, like, what if in your heart you just say, pick it, pick it, pick
Well, I mean, the devil
it.
does work like that. You go like, pick it, pick it.
I shall know that I'll take small and turn the rest.
Take it. You are suffering. You need it. You need it. You're suffering. Take everything. Don't take small.
Okay. No, this will take everything. Let's not be one kind of nonsense amount.
Your life is hard. Take it. This money can transform your life. Take it.
Don't take it to.
The last way to drive character transformation in fiction is a complete change of environment, which kind of reminds me of, when people will go like,
Yes, from one world to another.
yeah, get drawn into a game world or another
Mm.
world, like, and it just changes how they are, how they behave. The gist of it is that conflict, personal revelation, confronting the past, pivotal moments, and a change of environment are one of the five main key ways to drive character transformation. So, with all this discussed, we're going to take a look at BoJack Horseman's own character arc. We'll consider his character arc, what type of transformation the creators of the show gave him, so that we can better understand the design of his character as a grounded, dynamic character. Shall we?
Yeah. Let's do this.
So, hello, pages! This episode might have felt a little bit like a side quest, but it's a vital one. We've officially laid the groundwork for character transformation. Before we close the book on today, here's a quick recap on those transformation game results. Now, if you scored between 1 to 4, you've won the title of the Rock, and that means you're like me. You have a discrete transformation style. When life throws lemons at you, you just say, cool, lemons, and you stay exactly who you are. Your core identity is a fortress. If you scored 5 or approximately 5, you embody the spirit of the reflector. You are the quintessential transformer. For every major event, there is a proportional shift in your world. You evolve in perfect tandem with your journey. Finally, if you scored 6 to 10 points, you are the transforming butterfly. As an unequivocal changer, you don't just evolve, you reinvent. One major plot twist and you swapped your entire software for a brand new operating system. So, consider this as our foundation before we tackle the big one, BoJack Horseman. In our next episode, we're diving into his complex, messy, and neutral transformational journey. I hope you took a moment to play along today. This was more than just an exercise. It's an introspective mirror reminding all of us just how far we've come. Whether you're a writer looking to breathe life into your next protagonist or a listener who just wants to feel seen, I hope these insights help you to brew something incredible. We want to hear from you. Did the game reflect your own journey? Drop a comment and let us know. Your thoughts are the heartbeats of the show. If you've enjoyed the ride, hit the thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. You can also find us on Spotify, Amazon, and Apple Podcasts. And hey, for the gritty, ribs-cracking personal details Rita and I shared today, head over to our website at www.pagespodcasthq.com. That's www.pagespodcasthq.com. One last thing, always remember this: the best things are often hidden in plain sight.
Bye!